I will go ahead and just introduce myself real quick. My name is Samuel Torres, na notoka Samuel, Shimo Panolti, ni Mexika Iwan ni Nawa, na Nehuali, Los Angeles, El Paso, Zacatecas, and I live here in St. Paul, Minnesota. Um, what I shared with you in my language of Nahuatl is, of course, my name, and I'm Mexica, I'm Nahua, indigenous Mexican from the lands of Zacatecas, Mexico. I have relatives in Los Angeles and El Paso as well. Um, but I join you all on this call today in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm the Deputy Chief Executive Officer for the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition, and our home office is in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis of Minnesota. We are a national nonprofit organization dedicated to examining the truth, justice, and healing that is being endeavored for Indian boarding school survivors. And so it is through that mission that we are here together today. We are honored to be in this space. And again, we are eager to be together with you all next week when we come to visit on your lands. Um, so I want to first thank the Chickaloon Village Traditional Council for all of your profound collaborations, for being in partnership with us, not just in this event, but also in work that has preceded this with respect to the collaborations on digitizing Indian boarding school records. This work is necessarily collaborative, and we are honored by our work together in the past, now, and of course in the present, and then well into the future. We are honored to also be in partnership with the Alaska Native Heritage Center, who is a key partner in what we are so eager to bring a week's long scope of events to the premises of Alaska Native Heritage Center in a way that we feel is really profound. Opening in ceremony, closing in ceremony, and then of course we are eager to share a little bit about our process and the framework for our interview methods for oral history interviews with Indian boarding school survivors. So I want to invite a quick introduction of our staff, NAB staff, the Boarding School Healing Coalition. I'll start with Lacey, and then Lacey, you could pass it on to the next staff person.
Sure, thank you. I'm having technical difficulties with internet, so apologize for the on and offness. Bonjour, Makode Koi Indigenous. My name is Lacey Kinnard. My native name is Bear-Hearted Woman. I am Sault Ste. Marie Ojibwe from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and I am NABS's programs coordinator. And my grandma and all of her siblings went to Indian boarding school in Michigan and South Dakota in Carlisle. So that's my connection to this work. My role within Oral History Project is to make sure things are running smoothly and just be the on-site logistics person and to support the survivors and our team. If you have any questions, please let us know in the chat, and I'll pass it on to Meg.
Yeah. Yate, everyone. My name is Meg Singer. I'm coming at you from Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm Besh Bechae, born for Kia Ani. My family comes from Cameron, Arizona, the western agency of the Navajo Nation. I work here with NABS since October, working as the community and impact director, and have had the lucky privilege to work closely with ANHC and the Chickaloon Village folk and leaders to work on this agenda for this week. We're so grateful to have people to come to help heal needs to be healed when it comes to boarding schools. So thank you so much. And I'm going to pass it over to Charlie.
Ani Bojo Kinuea. I believe you passed it over to me, Meg. So hello, everybody. My name is Charlie Brissett. Nimida Magizi Kwe Indigenous Cause. My spirit name is Dancing Eagle Woman. I am Bear Clan my family's from the Eastern Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And I am also Sault Ste. Marie Ojibwe and Odawa. And I am the lead oral historian for this project. So with that, I help organize outreach for our elders and relatives that attended boarding school for our interview process. And with that, I'll pass it over to Moki.
Hello, my relatives. It's good to see you all. Moki Beriko and Machiapelo, Oglala Lakota Hemacha, Chakwe Opi, Tioshpaeki, Hetaha Pala. My name's Moki Beriko. I'm Oglala Lakota from Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. My family is from the Wounded Knee community. As Hankashi Charlie just mentioned, I'm also working in the oral historian team. Myself and Charlie and also our Kukum, Denise, will be the ones who are actually speaking with the relatives who went to boarding school, will be the ones directly talking to you, as you share your story. Yeah, I guess that's about all I have. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or anything. I'm gonna pass it over to who hasn't introduced himself yet. How about you, Joni? Akashi, Joni.
Good day, relatives. Goetzi Hopa, Guchinakse, John Hatowitz, I'm Dr. Joni Smina. I am from the Pueblo of Cochiti, and I serve as our Director of Communications for the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition. I joined the team on the staff side in June, and previous to that, I served on the board for the past 5 years. So seeing all of this come into fruition is definitely lots of prayers answered, and I'm a descendant of relatives who've attended Carlisle, Santa Fe, and Albuquerque Indian schools as well. Thank you, and I'll pass it to Iku.
Miigwech, Oki, Nistini Daniku, Ikutsimi Skimaki Beck. Hi, I'm Ikutsimi Skimaki. I go by Iku. I am Blackfeet and Red River Métis, and I'm enrolled in the Little Shell Chippewa tribe of Montana. I'm originally from Montana. I now live in Minneapolis. And I've worked for NABS as the community engagement coordinator since June of 2021. And I'm a descendant of boarding school survivors of a bunch of different boarding schools. My grandma went to St. Ignatius and Shamawa. And the person that I'm named after actually was the first person in my family to attend boarding schools. She went to Fort Shaw. And I'll be on a panel the Digital Archives team will be leading next week. And so I'll pass it over to them. Stephen, you can go next.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you, Iku. Yes, I'm Stephen Curley. I'm the Director of Digital Archives, and I'm very happy to be here and wanted to make myself available to anybody who might be interested in hearing more about the records digitization initiatives that NABS has and has been effectuating for the past 4 years or so now. I myself will be in Anchorage for the event later this month, actually next week. And I look forward to that visit with you all, and feel free to reach out to me. I'm actually going to go ahead and leave my contact information in the chat. So I'm going to pass it to Fallon, and I hope you all have a good day. Thank you.
See everybody. My name is Fallon Carey, and as Stephen mentioned, I am the Digital Archives Assistant. I'll also be there for the week, for next week. I am originally from around Tahlequah, Oklahoma. I'm Cherokee. I'm a descendant of Chilocco Indian Boarding School and Seneca Indian Boarding School survivors. And I will be there next week to kind of just provide ground support for all folks who will be around. I will also be on the panel with Selena and Angie and Iku. And I will be there to assist Stephen in helping anybody who would like to know more about our digital archive. So come say hello, I'll be at the table. And then do I need to pass it on to anybody else?
Tlasokamati Fallon, thank you. I would like to have our friends at Chickaloon Village Traditional Council, as well as Alaska Native Heritage Center, introduce themselves if they're in a place and have the availability to. And want to, after we do that, we'll ask Lisa Wade, who will open us up with a prayer. So, Lisa, I'd like to offer the introduction time and space to you.
Weli Jan and Sarota Lisa Wade Suzette Delan Tatina Eslan Night Deniana Kayak Sensiaden Sida Katna Isda Kadi Night Deniana Kayak Wasna. Hi everyone, good to see you all online. I apologize, we're a little late. We had trouble getting on here, but we made it. I'm sitting here with Angela Wade, who is going to be speaking on one of the panels next week, and I believe Selena's zooming in from somewhere as well. So Chinan for the invitation.
Go ahead. Angela Wade, Tribal Historic Preservation Officer, and I'll be there next week, and I'll be happy to be of service in whatever capacity I'm needed, and so much.
Hello, Selena. Can we invite you to introduce yourself as well?
Cuiraba, Huelijan, Nijer Walakuhu, Selena Ortega Chilero, Nijer Raramuri, Museum Specialist Nadine Kaya, Kwesna. Hi, everybody. My name is Selena Ortega Chilero. I'm the Museum Specialist for Chickaloon Village Traditional Council. So I work with Lisa and Angie, and I'll be joining the panel with Fallon, Iku, and Angie. I guess now, Ben?
Yalgı şişita şişi cümcese kaşfında süpya kadına panadina ina eşmanda eşman shita tolchen eşmanda shita. Hey everybody, my name is Benjamin Jasek. I'm the indigenous researcher over at the Alaska Native Heritage Center. I am in Athabascan and also Supiak, and I am a tribally enrolled citizen of the Canetsi Indian Nation. Yeah, and I will be, presenting the first day and helping out with the ceremonies, the first and last day. And so, thank you very much, Janan.
Tlasokamati, thank you, Ben, Selena, Lisa, and Angie. And I would like to invite Lisa to open us up in a good way with a prayer. Tlasokamati, Lisa, thank you for that good medicine. We're honored by that offering, by that contribution, and glad that we can gather to discuss next week's gathering, which we are so eager and thrilled to be able to be in a supportive space of truth seeking, of healing. And really just an opportunity to be good relatives to each other. So the gathering that we are working toward building the ground for, we are learning and listening from our relatives, is really a bold and I think rigorous event scope where we can have sometimes difficult discussions, but be in a really encouraging space alongside each other, where certainly we will learn and listen to our relatives, but also be in a space where we can contribute toward the ongoing healing journey and process of our relatives, with our relatives, and for ourselves and each other. Because it is important to recognize that not a single Native person has not been impacted, hasn't not been impacted by boarding schools. We have to recognize that legacy, that shared legacy, noting also the very specific impacts towards Alaska Native peoples. And so it is with that intent that we come to this gathering together, to be invited to your lands, to be able to do this work together. So we are grateful and we're honored by that collaboration. Of course, building that stage, building that ground necessarily involves the opening ceremony and the opening dialogues and presentations and panels that we'll of course see. We're very eager to be in community together. Throughout the bulk of that week, we will also be holding oral history interviews, which, as a part of the Department of the Interior's Federal Indian Boarding School initiative, we have been tasked by the DOI to be a part of building the first of its kind national permanent oral history project and collection of Indian boarding school survivors of various regions throughout Indian country, of at least 20 different regional sites. This will be the second regional visit that NABS has conducted. Last month, we joined relatives in Oklahoma City, where we conducted 20 interviews with boarding school survivors. And as we continue to do this work together, it's important for us to honor the traditional ways, the languages, the ceremonial mandates, and to hear from and to listen from the leaders of each region that we visit. And so it is with that we find ourselves in this place, necessarily sharing who we are, what it is we are preparing, and how we want to collaborate and to bring this space of truth, of accountability, and of healing, and to walk that path alongside you all. So with that, I would like to invite Charlie, who is our oral history team lead, to share a little bit more about our oral history project process and timeline. And then I'd like to, towards the end of this call, invite our partners and good relatives, Ben, Lisa, Angie, Selena, to be able to share a little bit more about what the other events that will be going alongside the oral history process will look like and entail. So again, thank you for being with us today. And Charlie, I'll go ahead and invite you to share a little bit more about our process.
Sure, thank you, Sam. Apologies, I'm not on camera today. I'm actually on the road traveling today, but I appreciate being here with you all. So to start, I just want to start by saying that for, the purposes for this project and for what we're doing for this project, is really important to establish relationships with our elders and our relatives that attended boarding school. And so it's important for us as historians, the ones that'll be doing the interviews and gathering stories, for us to start developing those relationships early with our elders. And so we start that by phone calls 2 to 3 weeks out of our site visit, for those that have provided phone numbers to us in the past for various reasons. If we don't have phone numbers, we start by emailing them. And then we email our relatives about 2 to 3 weeks out of our site visit, and start encouraging participation from our elders and relatives. After we have that invitation to share their stories, if they have attended boarding schools from 1970 or before, we connect them with the interview questions. We connect them with some resources that we have. some of the information, such as, what events and activities that we're doing the week of our site visit. We connect with them, we may connect with them a few times before our actual site visit, just to answer any questions or concerns they may have, and things like that. If you know anybody that may be interested in sharing their stories or their testimony, please have them reach out. We'll put the phone number and an email address that they can connect to in the chat. We do have a few spots left available for interviews. Our interviews take place on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week. So once we make those connections and once we get them scheduled for their interviews and their story sharing, when we're on site, we welcome our relatives and we thank them for sharing their stories with us. This is a significant part of their life, and so we really honor that they're willing to share that information with us, their life story. So when they arrive, we greet them, we welcome them, we have a welcoming area, and then we take care of some intake paperwork. After that, they can sit for professional photographs with a photographer that we have. Then we escort them to their designated space for their interviews and their visits. And we, again, as Moki said, we have 3 historians, myself, Moki, and Denise/Madir, that are the interviewers. And we sit with them for anywhere from 30 minutes to 90 minutes. It really depends on what our relatives and our elders feel, compelled to share, what they feel is most important for them to share. So after their stories, we invite them to sit down with our elder in residence or a spiritual helper to kind of decompress, and just to visit afterwards. And that time is really important. There can be prayer, there can be song. It's really just a time for them to continue that healing. And then after we spend some time in reflection, we return to the welcome area to give our relatives a care package that has been carefully put together by our team with gifts all made by Indigenous artisans. That care package also includes a stipend of $100 and a gas card. And then 1 week after our visit, the historians follow up with our relatives to maintain that connection and maintain that relationship. And from there, we do have a follow-up process where we'll be keeping in touch with our relatives up to 1 year or beyond that, to make sure that we're taking the utmost care of our elders and relatives that have shared their stories with us. Such an important part of their history. We really strive to make sure that we're doing everything we can to take care of our who become our family. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Sam or Lacey if they want to add anything. Miigwech.
I'd like to invite Lacey to share a little bit more.
So to start off the week in a good way, we like to start with an opening ceremony, and then at the end on Friday do a closing ceremony. And we like to have that be hosted or led by the community, so that we're not coming into the community leading or starting off with our culture or our way, that it's the community whose land that we are on, that we honor them and their traditions and ceremony. So we are very lucky to have the tribe, Alaska Native Heritage Center and the Chicaloon tribe lead this and do this through their Culture Advisory Committee. And so the opening ceremony is Monday, the 15th, starting at 2 p.m. at Alaska Native Heritage Center. And then the closing is Friday, the 19th at 3 p.m. And we just ask that if you do want to attend those, just for a meal count, that we ask you to RSVP, and you can do that in this form or by email or by phone call. We're just trying to get somewhat of a head count to see how many people will be there so that we know what to prepare for. I think that's it about those. Sam?
Thank you, Lacey. And I know that we made a brief adjustment just recently that closing ceremony will begin at 10 a.m. So that we'll be having a lunch gathering after our closing ceremony, and to have a feast so that we can be in community together. I want to thank Lacey and Charlie for for sharing a little bit about our process. Our method, so to speak, is one that we have endeavored to be a deliberately indigenous guided and led process. So often we hear the notion of, oral history. It brings reminders of research and university and, IRB processes. And while we are taking every measure to make sure that participants, boarding school relatives are cared for, are honored and are loved, we want to make sure that that we are building an environment, that we're stewarding and cultivating an environment that is one that we can see ourselves in, that reflects our ways, that reflects our traditional values. And so it is extremely central to this process for us to have not just a follow-up process of care, but to have a kinship process that reminds us of our relationships. And so as such, we find it important that when boarding school relatives that will be participating in the oral history aspects of this week, that they will be interacting solely through the lens of the oral historian, that they're not going to be having to remember, half a dozen people's names, that really you are only working with a single person that has been guided, that has been trained in the process that we have been working on developing for months and months now. And so I think it is really important to kind of share that we have been refining this work for several years now, and we're honored to bring this process. As we had noted and observed in Oklahoma, it was central for us to have multiple visiting spaces and to make sure that folks had enough, resources, space, time, enough water, coffee, food, and visiting space. Often folks never left until at the very end of the day, so we found ourselves visiting with people for as long as they wanted to. So we are eager to hold that space once more, and continue to learn from the people of the place. With that, I would like to invite Ben to share a little bit about the opening and closing ceremonies, and go ahead and offer you that moment, please. Thank you. Lasso Kamati.
Hey, Chicken Duck Sam. So yeah, over at the Alaska Native Heritage Center, we've been working with Chickaloon and also NABS in terms of trying to make the opening ceremony not just inclusive of all Alaska Native peoples, since it's something that does affect every single one of us. And since Alaska is so big, we have like 229 tribes with several different speaking dialects all across the state, just trying to make it very inclusive. And so a big part of that was having different forms of ceremonies that are unique to Alaska, that are able to really impact all peoples throughout the state. And so several ceremonies, but really just to be able to start this in the best way possible through a Alaska Native lens. And so that will be the opening ceremony along with the closing ceremony. And if we know our relatives all across the state, the one thing that we love is food. And so being able to not only feed our guests, but also our elders who want to partake in it. One aspect of the opening ceremony will be talking about Alaska and the specific context of the boarding schools in our state. One thing that Chickaloon, NABS, and Alaska Native Heritage Center have been doing is research concerning our region of the U.S. Because it's impactful not only to do it along with our relatives in the lower 48, but also to be able to tell our story, of our family, of our relatives as well. And so there will be a presentation along with a dinner or lunch and ceremony, and just so that we're able to do this not only in a good way, but together. And so, Chick-a-nick. Thank you very much, Sam.
Tasoko Mati Ben for that, and we're honored to be able to not just plan this space together and offer what we can, and to listen to the very important guidance that you all have offered us in the collaboration of this time and in these preparations. But we're really we're looking forward to being able to honor boarding school relatives together in the same place, as so much of our interactions have become normalized via virtual engagements. We're really looking forward to being together in the space together in the same place. So at this time, I'd like to invite Selena, Lisa, and Angie to share a little bit more about the We Are Learning and Listening from our families with respect to all of the other events that will be held in the same location and along the same timeline. Lasukamati.
Tina and Samuel, I'm going to invite Angela to speak about the plans they have, and then I can wrap up with our closing ceremony.
Hi, Sam, and everyone. I believe my role as a panelist is to, one, talk about my experience with the records, but also talk about my experience with just researching my own particular family and what rabbit holes that has led me down, and to maybe help advise others if they're curious, because oftentimes, it's a little bit of a mystery to puzzle together where our family members have gone. And in some instances, they were literally taken. So just my story of how we've done the research, and also just to be somebody that's good at visiting, if anybody would like to visit before or after their interviews as well. Chanan.
Yeah, and Selena, did you want to speak to do you want to speak to the space that we're creating, the visiting space with the meeting?
Oh, well, I mean, that's it, isn't it? Well, as a visitor, we're also going to have some materials to just sit and bead with people if that's what they choose to do, because we all enjoy doing that. So it's just it's like level 2 visiting with people and creating.
Kind of a healing, decompressing space, and just a place to be together, doing some creative things. And then on the closing day, we've invited our students from our Yanida'a tribal school to come and sing with the elders and visit with people, and just as a good reminder of, what people, what we're doing now, what should have been done a long time ago, creating our own educational spaces where kids are thriving, and just to gift back to the elders and the people that are giving of their time and their wisdom and their experience, just a little bit of love. So we've invited our kids in to share.
And I'll just add one thing. One thing the Alaska group was really mindful of throughout this entire process is that we recognize that everyone is in a different place when it comes to the boarding school conversation. And so all of the workshops that we have scheduled and spaces at the Alaska Native Heritage Center throughout the week are really meant for individuals to kind of find themselves where they want to be during that conversation or that experience. So that's why we have the healing activities that are more art-based. We have workshops if you want to do your own research and investigation into the boarding school topic. And then NAVS will be demonstrating their new online database as well. And then the panel conversation, as Angie mentioned, is about those of us who've done digitization on these records, our experiences, what we've learned, and the different research pathways we've discovered along the way.
Thank you, Selena, for articulating that.
Thank you, Tlasokamati, to each of you for expanding the context around the scope of events and the collaborations that have brought us to this place. I also want to invite Stephen Curley, our Director of Digital Archives, just to share a little bit about some of the archival work, and he'll be on a panel to share a little bit about the National Indian Boarding School Digital Archive, which is a tool that will be released later this month, that has been a years in progress collaborative work. And so often, when we are in from community to community, sometimes the technical specifics around digitization and, archival materials that are often housed in physical permanent repositories, sometimes thousands of miles away, can feel very far and inaccessible. But Stephen and his team, and really so much of the work of NABS, has been instrumental in making these types of processes and access to boarding school relatives information through these types of archival repositories not just accessible, but easier to understand and to be able to learn more about our families. And so we're honored to be able to include some panels and discussions that are on that end. So Stephen, I just want to invite you to share anything that you'd like to deepen that context about.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Sam, for giving me a little bit of time to communicate what the premise and promise of NIBSTA is all about. So NIBSTA is the National Indian Boarding School Digital Archive. And so if any of you is very familiar with some of the records that are housed at places like the National Archives and Records Administration, there's a lot of records that can be gleaned from to sort of tell us a little bit more about these historical archival truths when it comes to having a more nuanced understanding of this boarding school policy era and its inner workings of how things were early on established when it came to policy, how things were implemented when it came to logistics, and sort of this interconnected nature of all of these institutions kind of working in unison to have a large scale assimilation project to be applied onto children, essentially. And so for us here at NABS, in a lot of ways, this kind of archival records curation isn't really anything new. But when it comes to sort of making sure that the totality of all the 523 known U.S. Indian boarding school institutions records are sort of being curated in a sort of manageable and centralized manner, that NIBSTA is going to be sort of its first of its kind version of trying to make that effort possible. And so I wanted to point out that I'm very happy to work with Angie Wade and Selena or Ortega Shilero. I wanted to give a shout out to them and saying that they worked with us as contractors last year and the year before. So last 2 falls back and 1 spring ago. To really focus on some of the schools at Alaska. So there's Mount Edgecombe, some of the records at Mount Edgecombe Boarding School. There's also records that we were sort of targeting and selecting and prioritizing when it came to the Pacific Northwest, namely Mount Edgecombe and Cushman and Chamawa. So we got a lot of records out of that effort. And so there's a lot of discussion when it comes to how do we curate potentially traumatizing history without re-traumatizing individuals. And so that's kind of the nature of a lot of the work that myself and Fallon Carey, who's also on the line, are trying to explore and trying to articulate. And it's kind of a reflexive process to make sure that we sort of fine tune how we do that. And we're very receptive. We try to be as receptive as possible to community input with respect to how we manifest boarding school records curation. So hopefully we can communicate a little bit more about those processes when we're actually there next week. But I know that I mentioned the two, Selena and Angie, but also Fallon and Iku, who are both NABS team members, will be on a panel together, just kind of talking about records. And Angie already did a really good job of explaining what is to be expected with that panel. But myself, I'm actually going to be sharing a little bit more about what NIBSTA is and what it can do. And so that'll be another breakout session, I believe, same day on Tuesday. So thank you very much. Always available. I did leave my contact information for anybody who wants to follow up.
Much appreciation, Stephen, for sharing that context. So it's at this time that concludes our information sharing from our end. If there are any questions that folks might have, right now we can take them. Otherwise, we are always able to respond via email or via phone. So if there aren't any questions, we thank you for your time. We will get this information out as soon as the video is processed and ready for sharing.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, Rita.
Okay, I'm sorry about the noise. I'm in an industrial area of Fairbanks. I'm working with elders, and we're actually doing a listening session. Kenny Blacksmith he's the chief of the Cree Nation in Quebec. He'll be sharing on what Canada has done. And they've done a lot of work since 2008. Part of this is, the breakout sessions. And so I'd like to hear some of your topics on the breakout sessions.
I thought he was sitting, I thought I was a picture. He sits so damn still.
Absolutely. Meg, do you have that
Yeah.
at a glance that you could share with us, please?
Absolutely. So along with some of the things that we've been talking about, like the digital archives, again, everything is back onto the theme of the week, which is we are learning and we are listening from our families. So on Wednesday, there's an event and a workshop that is about researching for your community. It's talking about the repatriation of material culture. And that's going to be led by our Chickaloon Village and Alaska Native Heritage Center. And then on Thursday, oh, I'm sorry. And then there's going to be a healing activity also that day. And then on Thursday, there's also going to be a healing activity and then another workshop. And this workshop is going to be talking about family history, which we all know, when we're looking at our ancestors, we're trying to find them, the number one rule is you have to start with yourself first. So I love that we're also doing that. Yeah. And so that kind of, that's actually what the week looks like. Any other questions for you, Rita, on that?
I was actually looking at the particular questions that you'll be asking. I'm just imagining your breakout sessions might be talking circle format, maybe some of them. But I can call or email.
Yeah. Rita, you're more. Oh, sorry,
go
Megan, I didn't mean to interject. You're more than welcome to reach out to Lisa, Angie, and I from Chickaloon, or even Ben. Ben is going to be leading the Monday conversation about the context of boarding schools in Alaska, as well as the repatriation of cultural materials and community research. Angie will be leading the family history one. We did talk about some of those being in community circle. We want this to be as organic as possible. And we really want the participants who are attending each of those workshops to just kind of help guide that process. We're really open to kind of adapting depending on what's happening. We have content we want to share, but really it's about the participants more than anything else. It's not really about us. And we have learned so much over all of these years of doing all this research. We want to make sure that participants are aware of all these different outlets that are available to them to kind of do their own investigation. Angie, Ben, did you want to add anything?
A few things. Thank you very much, Selena and Meg, for talking or giving very important information about this week. So one thing that a lot of times whenever we talk about boarding schools or present information is the follow-up question, what can I do? And specifically for my village or community, tribe, or even just family. And this gives an option while our elders are being able to tell their stories a lot of the times for the first time. We're also giving community members an opportunity to learn how they can make a difference within their own community, do this research for their own community. Since Alaska has 229 tribes, there's no shortage of communities. And so our goal was to make this as contextual to Alaska as possible. And so while the panel on Tuesday is going to be really talking about NPSTA, the research that NABS has been doing with federal records, Wednesdays is going to be more specific towards like how to do research, not only for Alaska, but also within like church records, something that for the most part, people haven't really worked within outside of like ANHC and a few other organizations. And since Alaska was for the most part church run, us being able to, not only share that information, but how you can interact with it, how you can get that information for your specific community. And so providing those resources through that, and like what Angie will be doing, Angie Wade, talking about, family history, being able to really, because a lot of that history has been lost, or at least has gone dormant right now. And so relearning that and being reconnected to these communities that we were torn away from. And so, and ultimately helping other people to do so as well. And so it will all be interactive. No one wants to hear Ben Jasek, Selena, or Angie talk to you. And we want it to be able to have we want it to be more of a conversation than anything. And so, Chicken Nick.
And Angie had to step out, but the one thing that I want to say in response to the questions and process is that the number one thing when we are inviting people to come into our community, we're inviting NABS to come into our community. The number one thing that we've spoken about from Chickaloon and the Heritage Center is the care and love for our elders throughout the entire process. And so we're building in a lot of support for them. We're building in time for them. We're building in food for them. We are going to be walking alongside of them as they go through this. And whatever that process looks like for our community is what we're going to follow. That's the main thing that we would like to get across, is that there's no prescriptive thing, that expectation that we have on anybody. We've invited people to come in and do this work, but ultimately the love and care for our people here falls upon us as hosts for this place. So those conversations have been very fruitful and meaningful. And I think there's a lot of intention that's gone into ensuring that the love and the care will be there for everyone throughout this entire week.
just want to reaffirm and thank everyone for sharing everything that was shared to this point, most especially about honoring and stewarding and cultivating an environment of care, as we know that that is the most important aspect of this. So with that, we will go ahead and close our virtual circle at this point. We will see you all soon. We look forward to being in the same space together, and sharing energy and coming together to encourage and pray with and grieve with and honor boarding school relatives, who deserve to be honored, who deserve to have their lived experiences honored and shared and understood and seen and held. And we are eager to be contributing to that in some way, and are honored by the collaborative spaces of Alaska Native Heritage Center, the relatives that are working at ANHC, the relatives at Chickaloon Village Traditional Council, the relatives at South Central Foundation, and everybody that has contributed to the encouragement of boarding school relatives in this time right now, but also before, as we know that we don't exist in a vacuum. We don't exist without this work that has been ongoing for decades, for generations, and that we exist now as a result of their work, of their struggle, of their prayers. And so we are honored to continue to be a part of that, and to continue to understand more about our kinship, more about our own relationality between nations, between tribes, and to learn more about how we can be a part of that healing process individually, in community, and for our nations. So it is with that that I extend my deepest gratitude. Tlasokamati walmiak, iwan timoetaske. We will be with you all and see you all soon. So thank you very much.